Oh boy, yesterday was quite something, and today we have finally got a definitive result. Since 2015, many have asked, when will Jeremy Corbyn finally leave? The answer is, we still don't know. But the election results are in, and we should quickly address that. At time of recording, 649 of 650 constituencies have been declared. The Conservatives won 364, which is up 47. Labour 203, down 59. The SNP 48, up 13. Liberal Democrats 11, and they lost 1. DUP lost 2 and are now 8, and there are others which were 15 seats, up 2. Notice how there was no mention of the Brexit Party. Yes, funny that. They did win 640,000 votes, but they were unsuccessful in gaining any seats. But it was 2% share of the entire vote, so many will say they surely deserve seats because of the percentage of votes they got. Boris Johnson has said he'll work night and day to repay voters' trust after leading the Conservatives to this absolutely resounding victory, one they have not had on this level since the 80s, since the time of Margaret Thatcher. And Jeremy Corbyn has said he will not lead the Labour Party into the next election.
I want to also make it clear that I will not lead the party in any future general election campaign. I will discuss with our party to ensure there is a process now of reflection on this result and on the policies that the party will take going forward.
Now, this is all rather interesting because while many blame his leadership for their utter failing, and rightly so, the buck stops at him, and the fact that they lost a number of strongholds across Northern England and Wales, mostly in areas that voted Leave in 2016, it is actually quite difficult to get rid of him, because party rules don't allow it, really, unless a vote of no confidence happens, but even then that doesn't mean he has to leave. We know this because he lost one in 2016, I believe. People who have been considered suitable to replace him would include MPs like Laura Pidcock, had she not lost her seat. The shadow minister lost her seat, and we'll get to those who lost their seat, and I expect a lot of Fs in the comments for these people. Others would include Sir Keir Starmer, because he is probably one of the smartest people to challenge Boris on the Brexit policy of the government. John McDonnell says he will wait before he challenges, although I don't believe he stands so much as a chance. Interestingly, the election turnout was actually quite high. It was higher than that of 2015, but not higher than that of 2017, edging 67.2%, which I think is actually a pretty good turnout considering how polarising this election is. As you can see from this chart, this is how the election worked out in 2017, and this is how it worked out last night. Labour have lost a huge number of seats in the north and in Wales, which is rather unfortunate, don't you think? And as you can see from the SNP, they've also gained a few more Conservative seats and nearly wiped out Labour from Scotland altogether. Feels like a one-party system, doesn't it? But there are a couple Liberal seats at least up there, just not Joe Swenson's. And let's get to that, shall we? There are a number of MPs who've lost their seats. Jo Swinson is one of them, who lost her Dunbartonshire East seat by 149 votes, and now will be stepping down as leader of the Liberal Democrats, which she would have to do, because there's no way she could continue as their leader without a seat. Many could now say, but Farage, no. Next would be the one I actually wanted to lose his seat because he's a bit of a tosser. Dominic Grieve, who battled against Brexit in the House of Commons, lost his seat. He ran as an independent in Beaconsfield and won more than 16,000 votes, but was understandably beaten by a new Tory candidate, Joy Morrissey, who won 32,477 votes. Enjoy retirement, Dominic. Next would be the DUP leader, Nigel Dodds. He was defeated by Sinn Féin, who won 2,000 more votes than Mr. Dodds. Next would be former mayor candidate Zach Goldsmith. But to be honest, his seat was always considered a bit of a swing seat because he only had a 0.1% majority in 2017. by 45 votes. Next is the Shadow Secretary of State for Employment Rights. There's a hint of irony with this one. Laura Pidcock, who lost her seat by about 1,100 votes. Bye, Laura. You were considered a future, leader of the party. Oops. Next, former Justice Secretary David Gauke. Now, he worked as the Pensions Secretary, Work and Pensions Secretary in Mrs. May's government. His Tory successor took more than 30,000 votes, which is 14,000 more than he got. I told you those who were once Conservative would lose their seats to Conservatives. Now, the next name is the one I didn't want to lose. More than anything else, this guy I like. He entertains me to no end and makes me smile because he's such a gobby man. He's been kicked out of Parliament so many times. So to lose him sucks, because at his age and with what he's been going through, this is all he had. He has nothing else. And that would be Dennis Skinner, Labour MP since 1970. Dennis Skinner was about to become the Father of the House because of the retirement of Ken Clarke, but that now falls to Tory MP Peter Bottomley. I'll be honest, given the choice, I'd rather it was Dennis Skinner. But the Conservatives took it with a swing of 11.5%, and many have already attributed this to Brexit. A rather unnecessary casualty in all of it. I was going to make a video, by the way, mocking Diane Abbott for wearing 2 left-footed shoes, but instead I'm pressing F in my own comments section because of Dennis Skinner. I like Dennis Skinner. To quickly go back to the DUP, because there's an issue there that is rarely addressed. Sinn Féin never sit in Westminster. They never do. Meaning all the seats they've won won't be heard. Their voices will never be heard. Because Sinn Féin protests it and won't sit in Parliament. So the voices of the Northern Irish people when it comes to the UK stage of politics is mute. F for that, I guess? Going forward, this is all going to be rather interesting, and I will go into more detail about this later tonight with Trups. Because honestly, so many lost their seats, and there are more MPs I want to talk about. For example, Chuka Umunna, who was the MP for Stratham from 2010 till 2019. But then he went for a London seat as a Liberal Democrat, attempting to take one of the Conservative strongholds that they've held since the inception of that constituency, where he went on to lose because he got arrogant. This man, by the way, much like Laura Pidcock, was considered a future leader of the party of Labour. A damning statement of people's arrogance when they think they can, well, let's say punch above their average, go into enemy territory and simply take it for a party no one cares about. No one's going to care about the Liberal Democrats, although I'm intrigued to now know who will be their leader, because had he still retained his seat, I would have thought Chuka Umunna could have been a leader of the Liberal Democrats, but then based on how he handled the Labour Party's leadership campaign where he stood down because he didn't like the attention, it's unlikely he'll ever be a leader in high office. At least he gets to go back to being a member of the public where he can be a Ramona there, right? Ah, Jesus Christ. All this is quite interesting, and I'm very intrigued to know what you think, and whether you believe now Boris can finally do what he said he would do, and take us out on January 31st. Because they made gains. The SNP did too, by the way. The SNP made huge gains in Scotland, making them the 3rd biggest party still, which means we get the paper pervert for even longer. Corbyn is likely to stay on for the first few PMQs until a new candidate can be found. But chances are to be somebody that holds his views, so when he goes to the back benches, he knows he can trust whoever it is in charge to enact his will and his policies, which, while some were, I believe, useful, many were utterly reckless.